Have you ever thought, what do property managers even do? Or, I could probably be a decent landlord. Well, you need to stay tuned for this episode of the Mastering Real Estate podcast because we are diving into Heather and Brandon Turner's The Book on Managing Rental Properties with a real-life property manager, founder and CEO of Freedom Ventures Property Management, Danny Gonzalez. And we're going to get into what it takes to be a successful landlord and property manager. Welcome to the Mastering Real Estate podcast. This podcast is for real estate investors and professionals looking to take their real estate game to the next level. On Tuesdays, I analyze the industry's leading real estate books and break down the main lessons that you can apply to your life and business. Then on Thursdays, I review the lessons I have learned from flipping over 100 houses and being a full-time real estate investor since 2018. Stay tuned each week so that we can all become masters of real estate together. Welcome back to the Mastering Real Estate podcast. This is episode 11, and today we are reviewing Heather and Brandon Turner's The Book on Managing Rental Properties with property manager Danny Gonzalez. This is one of the most popular books out there when it comes to property management, so we're sitting down with a leading property manager here in the Southeast to get his perspective on the book and property management in general. I'm your host, Maura. I've been a full-time real estate investor since 2018. I've managed over 100 flips, founded and grew a real estate investment firm and property management company, and I live and work in the real estate industry every day. Why should you listen to this podcast? Well, there's a ton of BS out there when it comes to real estate, but there is timeless wisdom in books. I cover a broad array of topics and help you become a well-rounded real estate professional. Finally, I want to help you take action. Every week, I boil down the key lessons and takeaways from each book into action steps that you can apply to your life and business. This week, we are reviewing Heather and Brandon Turner's The Book on Managing Rental Properties. This book is literally a step-by-step guide on how to be a good landlord or property manager. If you want to manage your own rental properties or simply just understand what it is your property manager does, this book is a great resource. Before we jump into the book, let's learn a little bit about the authors, Heather and Brandon Turner. Heather and Brandon Turner are a married powerhouse real estate investor couple. They began their real estate investing journey early at the age of 21, learning through trial and error how to become successful landlords and real estate investors in Western Washington state. Over time, they steadily bought, sold, and flipped their way into creating a vast real estate empire across the U.S. Brandon and Heather started investing in single and small multifamily properties and now focus on apartment complexes and mobile home communities. They manage over 700 rental units and have completed dozens of rehabs. Brandon Turner is the founder of Open Door Capital and a prominent figure in the real estate investing world. He's a best-selling real estate author, former host of the Bigger Pockets podcast, and the former vice president of Bigger Pockets, which is the leading real estate investor networking platform in the U.S. Brandon, Heather, and their daughter are all adventurers, and they split their time between their home in Hawaii and various global destinations. The Book on Managing Rental Properties is a comprehensive guide that provides valuable insights and practical advice for landlords and property managers. The book covers various aspects of managing rental properties, including finding and screening tenants, setting rent prices, handling maintenance and repairs, and dealing with difficult situations like eviction. The Turners draw on their own experience as successful real estate investors and landlords to offer practical tips and strategies for maximizing profits and minimizing headaches in the rental property business. The book emphasizes the importance of effective communication with tenants, proper financial management, and proactive property maintenance to ensure long-term success. Throughout the book, Turners share real-life stories, case studies, and practical examples to illustrate key concepts and offer actionable advice. If you are interested in becoming a landlord or property manager, this is probably the first book you should read. There's tons of great advice in this book, but it can all be boiled down to the 13 principles for being an incredible landlord, which are outlined in chapter 15. These 13 principles are: number 1, commit to taking landlording seriously. Number 2, run your business like a business. not a hobby. Number 3, prepare your business before signing your first lease. Number 4, be mindful of fair housing laws. Number 5, find incredible tenants through smart marketing. Number 6, pre-screen to eliminate duds, so the importance of pre-screening your tenant. Number 7, use your application to screen for amazing tenants. Number 8, sign a solid lease. Number 9, train your tenant from day 1. Number 10, handle problems carefully and effectively. Number 11, have a system for dealing with contractors. Number 12, keep organized. And number 13, transition tenants out carefully. Now, if this seemed a little fast, don't worry, because we are about to bring on a real life property manager, Danny Gonzalez, to review this book a little bit more in depth and reiterate some of the most important points. Today, we're speaking with Danny Gonzalez, who is the founder and CEO of Freedom Ventures Property Management, a leading property management company here in the southeastern United States. Danny has over 10 years of experience in real estate as an agent, investor, broker, and property manager. He founded Freedom Ventures Property Management in 2019 with a dream of helping others achieve financial freedom through real estate investing. He currently owns 30 doors and has 5 flips going on, in addition to running Freedom Ventures Property Management. Danny and his wife Amy and 2 children, Daxton and Joanna, live in Miami, Florida. Outside of work, he enjoys spending time with his family, weightlifting, reading, and deepening his faith with other Christians. Thank you so much for being on the Mastering Real Estate podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, maybe a little bit about your family and how you got into real estate?
Yeah, sure. So thank you for having me on. I'm excited to be here. I was born and raised in Miami, Florida, first generation American. So both my parents were born in Cuba. Lived in Miami until about 17. And then I moved away to Orlando, went to school there and graduated from UCF. Ended up meeting my wife. Shortly after college, I became a middle school science teacher and did that for about 2 years, kind of day in, day out of being a teacher. And I thought it was really fun and exciting. I really enjoyed it, but I kind of felt like I wanted to try something else, and eventually got recruited by a top agent in Orlando to get into real estate. And he just said, hey, I think you'd be really good at real estate. You should try it. So prior to that, I literally had never purchased a property, never even thought about real estate or investing or being an agent or anything regarding that. So kind of, made the jump, and over summer break, essentially, me being a teacher, I got my license. And instead of going back to teach, I became a full-time real estate agent. I was married at the time. My awesome wife, very supportive, was willing to endure those difficult times with me. But yeah, I became an agent, did that for, it's coming up on 10 years ago now. And we ended up moving to Birmingham about 3 or 4 years into that agent journey. Started looking into more on the investing side. And so eventually started working with more investors, eventually met someone who kind of showed me how he built a portfolio of 17 properties. And from there, I opened up a HELOC and I bought my first property at auction, sight unseen, super risky, but it ended up working out. It was a really good deal. Right after that, I think is when I met you and we took down that portfolio. That was really the start of Freedom Ventures Property Management. And then from there, it's grown. So right now I'm at 30 doors in my own personal portfolio. We manage 350 and I have about 5 flips going on. So yeah, still have a long ways to go too.
That's so amazing. I know that a lot of people who are listening to this podcast and interested in real estate investing in general, they are interested because of kind of the financial freedom and flexibility it provides. Could you maybe just talk about, as someone who's been doing this for 10 years and has gotten a long way, could you maybe talk about what it's done for you and your family and maybe provide a little motivation for someone that might be at the beginning? Because the beginning can be a little bit hard. Sometimes it's nice to hear, what your hard work will get you.
Oh, for sure. And I would be glad to talk about this because it really has changed my whole life. Again, I did not grow up wealthy. I did not grow up with money. None of my family are entrepreneurs. Actually, my mom did own a property, but that was just a primary one. I think, as I look back over the past 10 years, specifically the last 4 years, It's crazy. I made $40,000 yesterday, and as a teacher, because I sold a flip yesterday, and I got the wire, and I didn't think about this, but just because you asked, I used to make $35,000 as a teacher. I'd spend a whole year of like dealing with kids and parents, and lesson plans and grades, and day in day out, and I literally made that in a few months because I was able to add value to a property. It is possible to completely change your life. So I live in Miami now, so I moved back to Miami, bought a house down here. My wife is still a stay-at-home mom. I have two amazing kids. Like the ability to not have to worry about money, to have that nagging pressure and stress of money in your life is just, it will literally eat away at everything. And especially if if I don't know how other people have, but in the past I've had a lot of debt, like bad debt. Didn't make a lot of money, and so like every time I'd go to the store, it was stressful. I really want this one thing, but I can't have it because it's an extra dollar or two. And I was very like frugal and cheap, and a lot of that is kind of my own bringing in. I've had to work through my own self-limiting beliefs, but yeah, it's definitely feasible to be able to make a lot of money in real estate and be able to see the world not in a scarce mindset, but in a very abundant mindset where 100,000, 200,000 is nothing. I mean, and I say that with, there's so much more out there that's possible, and just being able to start to really understand that, it's been really cool. And I'm still learning that my goals are still, if I were to, share my 2024 goals with some people, they laugh at it. I'm like, oh, I make that in a month. But for me, that's just where I'm at, and this is a part of my journey. I would definitely recommend people to just commit to it, because at that first deal, if you could get over that first hump, that first purchase on whether it's a burr, whether it's a flip, whether it's a long-term rental, you could get that first one. You'll see that proof of concept. You'll see that it actually works. For me, I was hooked after that. I bought my first property and I made $70,000 in 1 year. After that, I was like, there's no going back. Like I can never go back to making $30,000 a year. There's, just a lot more bigger dreams and ambitions for me nowadays.
That's so, so amazing to hear. And I think that'll give a lot of people a lot of inspiration, especially if they're in those beginning days that are pretty hard. Totally worth it. Tell me a little bit about Freedom Ventures Property
Mm.
Management.
Freedom Ventures Property Management. Oh man, that is a company that I started 4 years ago. I literally started the company with zero management experience. So like literally had never managed a property before. I had bought one property maybe like a week or two prior to starting the company, but we handle everything for the owner client. So the way that I pitch it to owners nowadays, we provide peace of mind for all of our owner clients. And so we do that by essentially handling all the day-to-day aspects of managing a property. Everything from placing the tenant, screening the tenant, handling the day-to-day work orders, eventually handling the renewals. If they end up moving out, then we handle the turnover and then getting it released. So it is something to where it's been really, really cool to grow. We started at 0 doors. We grew it up to over 650 doors at one point, and then we scaled it back with the right owner clients and the right properties. We're at 650 doors. We grew it the wrong way though. As I look back, like I just wanted to grow it and just kind of have that ego of like getting to 1,000 doors. But now I'm very selective. I turn away a lot of owner clients, people that want us to manage their properties. I'm not in the day-to-day ops anymore. So I don't deal with tenants. I rarely deal with owner clients. If they don't fit the criteria of what we're wanting to do long-term, I say go find someone else, because at the end of the day, like if the owners are not willing to take care of the property, they're not willing to invest into the tenants, making sure that it's habitable, like it's only going to make our lives more difficult. It's been a really, really good thing to be able to go, from 0 to 650, now back down to 300. We've grown it to 350. So quite the journey for sure.
I was part of that journey for a little bit, and it is a tough journey. I'm sure it's still tough every day now. But that's why I'm so happy to have you on the podcast. We're going to talk about this book. That's probably the most popular book about property management. So I thought that having Danny, who is in this world every day, to give us your 2 cents about, what value can people get from this book? Who is it right for? And then more generally, how can people find a good property manager and have a good relationship with their property manager? I think that that's going to help so many people. let's just start out with a basic question. You've been now running a property management company for several years. When you read this book, what are some of the things that you like?
Again, when I started the company, I literally had zero experience in managing properties. And so this book literally was my reference every day. I'd refer to it every day because probably for the first 6 months or so, not only are their forms were super helpful, like being able to have all the forms there that they give you, but the other side of it of like, how do you handle screening a tenant? How do you handle the showings of a property? How do you handle the work orders as they come in? How do you handle the renewals of the leases? Like, it spells out, hey, this is the best practice for it. If you're new to managing a property, say you just bought a property and it's in your hometown and you want to manage it yourself, this book will literally lay out step by step on it's just a guide on how to do that properly. Like if you want to be a successful landlord, read this book. It really is that simple because it spells out from A to Z everything that it entails to manage a property.
I totally agree. You could almost use this book as like a checklist. You could go through, take notes, and make it a checklist, use all the downloadable resources, and get your business going. And later we'll get into, Danny's recommendation about if he recommends getting into this business or not. But if you wanted to do it, this book is a really good place to start.
Exactly. Yeah. If you want to build a property management company, I would say this is not the best resource because that requires different skill sets and a different approach. But if you're wanting kind of the day-to-day to be a property manager, then for sure, like this book has everything you would need to be successful in it.
Awesome. Now, is there anything that you don't love about this book?
Anything I don't love. So the one thing that it's really good, I would say it was probably written about at least 10 or 15 years ago. So some of the things are probably a little bit outdated as far as tech and, like making sure that you're being as efficient as possible. With the book, and it's really not what I dislike, but it's just a limitation on reading a book that's written to the mass. Every state is different and they have different approaches, different laws, different organizations. If you are using this and you're not talking to anyone in the local market, you're not going to be as well equipped to manage your property as you would be as if someone is actually in the local market and the attorneys there, the sheriff department, how Section 8 offices work. Like there's certain limitations for anybody. It's not that I dislike anything about the book because it is helpful, but it's only going to get you to a certain point because the other side of that is going to have to be something that's local and specialized to that specific market where your property's at.
I totally agree. I think overall it is a good book and maybe a good starting point for someone that wants to be a landlord.
Exactly.
But it's so true that there's so much about real estate that is hyper local that you have to learn that there's no way that a book could cover that comprehensively for everyone. And this one can't. And you're right. You're right about the tech too, because there's so many tools that have come out now, whether it's marketing or tech to actually manage your property. I think, this could be a good starting point, but now there's even so much more that you can do to more efficiently manage your properties. And maybe that's something we can talk about in a little bit of some of your favorite tools that you guys use at Freedom Ventures.
Sure.
What are some important lessons or takeaways that the audience can glean from this book, do you think?
Some important takeaways. Towards the end of the book, there's a chapter, I think it's a whole chapter, the 13 principles of being an incredible landlord. That essentially summarizes the whole book. There are certain values that if you exude, if you do day in, day out, it essentially handles all of the kind of details. And so like one of them would be like run your business like a business, like not just a hobby, like have systems, have checklists. So if you're managing your own property and every time a tenant doesn't pay rent, you don't know what to do or you handle it differently, that's only going to cause stress in your life because stress is where there is uncertainty on how to handle it. But if you have a checklist or a system written out or process that states when the tenant does not pay rent by the 6th of the month, this is what I do. I send them a text message. Then on the 7th, I post a notice. Then on the 8th, I send it to the attorney. Then every single time that a tenant doesn't pay rent, you know exactly what to do, which then again reduces the amount of stress and also allows you to have systematized operations on it. So you're going to make sure that more people are paying rent on time and that, again, you're running it like a business, not like a hobby on the side. But if some months you post the notice and then other months you don't, then what happens is that the tenants, they don't know how to act. And in the book, actually, one thing that I refer to a lot, even till today, is in everything that we do, we're training our tenants on whether it's good or bad behavior. And so if they don't pay rent on by the 5th and you don't do anything, they're like, hey, that's fine. I'm not gonna, there's no reason for me to pay. I have no repercussions or no consequences. And so you're kind of rewarding that bad behavior in a good way, which is not what you want as a property manager. And so you want to be able to keep them accountable and hold them to the expectation, to the commitment of the lease, by making sure that you're handling things in a uniformed way. So every month it's repeatable. Same thing with like a renewal. 60 days out, if your lease spells out that 60 days prior to the end of the lease, if there's not a cancellation or notice of cancellation, it automatically renews, and you don't want that tenant to renew. You have to be able to then like the lease is written, at least our lease is written in certain ways that if you're not preemptively putting a non-renewal out there, then at that point you're kind of stuck with them. They're going to automatically sign on for a whole nother year. Running the property like a business is going to be essential to the success of it, because you want to dot your I's and cross your T's. Making sure that you do that across the board is going to be key.
I think one thing that they say in the book, which is like a simple concept, is to be firm but fair and consistent. I know this is such a simple thing, but I know that I messed this up at the beginning as a real estate investor. I think, and they even say this in the book, that almost everyone messes this up when you're a beginner landlord, that, a situation will come up and you want to be a nice, good person. Maybe one of your tenants is having a hardship and your instinct might be to kind of let something slide. As you said, if you let things slide, they have a tendency to just keep sliding and sliding and sliding. And if you're not consistent with your standards and procedures and enforcing them, it just creates a bad situation and relationship for everybody. And it's hard to really understand this until you're doing it. The importance of being firm, fair, and consistent. I think it's so simple, but probably you can't underestimate its importance in property management.
100%. Yeah, those are 3 really good words to remember, especially because, like, if you're not consistent, say you take that word consistent, if you're not consistent with the way that you screen your tenant, have some ambiguity. I want this person because ABC, and I don't want this person because DEF. Like, there are certain rules and regulations, the Fair Housing and HUD. There is laws in place that if you're not consistent and fair across the board, there's serious consequences that could happen. So making sure that you just, not only in obviously screening a tenant, but the way that you handle rent collection, the way that you handle maintenance, if you could be fair, what was it? Fair, consistent,
firm, fair, and consistent.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. The firm, fair, and consistent. If you could be those 3, then it makes everything so much easier.
Yeah, I think that if you're interested in being a landlord, if you can remember those things, the 13 principles of being a good landlord, and maybe being firm, fair, and consistent, if you put that up on, then you'd probably be better off than a lot of people starting out.
Yeah.
Okay. Who do you think should read this book, or who do you think it was written for?
So I think it was written for people that want to manage their own properties. I don't know if your audience are ones that would want to be managing their own properties, but if you're wanting to actually handle the day-to-day side of it, this is 100% a great resource. It literally, if you have 0 experience like I did, it could give you a solid foundation on how to handle tenants and how to manage properties. It really is a really good resource.
I completely agree. I think for our audience, I would say probably more people are going to fall into the category of wanting to find a property management company. So maybe this book may not be the most helpful if that's your situation. I think it can be helpful in that it can give you a better understanding and appreciation for what your property manager is doing, because I think there are a lot of misconceptions about that out there, but it's not really a guidebook necessarily to finding a good property manager, although I think reading it could maybe help you find a good property manager. Yeah, I think if you want to learn how to manage your own properties, this is a great place to start.
Yep, 100%.
If you had to rate this book on a scale of 1 1 to 10, what would you give it?
I would give it an 8.5 just because, it's not a perfect book by any means. Again, it could probably use an updated version. It's a really, really solid book for sure. I think the way that I see it is like it's a foundational book. If you're wanting to manage your own properties, or like you said, even if you're wanting to hire a property manager, just to get a better understanding of what they're doing, it's only going to make you a better investor. It's going to help you manage them better, the PM company, but it's also going to be hopefully it's going to lead to more empathy on kind of the day in, day out of. There's literally a whole book about how to handle one tenant. Imagine, 400 tenants or 1,000 tenants. It obviously I think it's, a great foundational book.
Absolutely. Are there any other good books or resources about property management that you would recommend to the audience?
There are a lot of really good property management resources. If you're wanting another book on actual day-to-day management of tenants and properties, nothing really comes to mind. The one that comes to mind and just kind of a step back is it's called The Courage to Be Disliked. It's a small book and it's not relevant. It's not pertinent to property management. It's very relevant in the sense that kind of what you said, firm, fair, and consistent. It teaches you it's a fable about two people and how one person it's more of a philosophy book, but it teaches you how to kind of have the courage to be disliked, how to have self-acceptance, and how to stand firm on your truth. And if you can kind of take the principles of that book, then it becomes very relevant to how you interact with tenants on the day-to-day, how to make sure that I guess if you're owning a property management company, then the owner clients, the people that own the properties, how you handle them. So yes, it's not a property management book per se, but it is a very helpful book in the great scheme of things.
Very cool. I haven't read that one yet, so I'll add it to my list.
If you like philosophy, it's really good. Yeah.
Cool. Very
That's kinda
cool. Now let's get into some just more general questions about property management, because I know that a lot of our listeners are interested in learning about property management, how to find a good property manager. So let's start with, are there any big lessons you've learned or anything that stands out from the past 5+ years of running a property management company? That's a huge one. I guess,
Yeah.
any big lessons that come to mind?
Yeah. So it's a big question, and I could probably talk about this for hours, honestly, because it's literally consumed my life for the past 4 years. So I'm going to assume that you're, again, an investor interested in hiring a property management company. So if that is the case, what I would say is just know that the property managers at the end of the day are human, just like you're human, just like everyone else that you interact with is human. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to do things really well. They're going to have strengths, and then they're going to do some things that are not so well, or they're going to have some weaknesses. So making sure that you keep that in mind, I feel like is going to be key. Again, going from 0 doors to a lot of doors to not so many doors to slowly building it back. Like I've seen how, again, I think there's also, going back to what I mentioned earlier, it's making sure that you align with the values of the property manager. So there's some property managers that are okay with quote unquote being slumlords. And like what I mean by that is like they're going to do the bare minimum to get the property by and like not really care for the tenant. Like we have, so an example would be I had recently brought on an owner client that probably has about 10 doors in Birmingham. And within the first 30 days, one of his heaters went out in the middle of winter. So it's cold. It's like 20, 30 degrees in Birmingham. And he just would not replace the heater. Was like, no. And like 2-3 weeks went by. And what happened was I was like, I canceled the PMA immediately, like within a week or so, because I was like, his values are different than mine. At the end of the day, he only cares about the bottom line. At the end of the day, the bottom line is important, but it's not the most important thing. And I have certain liabilities and certain protections. I have certain expectations that, obviously like the state, I'm licensed, and there's certain expectations that I have to fulfill on my end. And if I don't, then obviously like my license could get revoked and stuff. So making sure that you align with the values and the core values and the principles of the PM company. If things go well, it's a simple thing. It's like the tent, it's vacant. They place a tenant. the tenant pays every month and they stay there forever. Like that, you like you never hear from us as the PM company to the owner client. We never hear from you. Like it's like we send you money every month. Everything's perfect. When things are not perfect, I think that's when we have to have a discussion about like what happened, and then how can we avoid this from happening again. And it's sometimes it's our the PM company to the owner client. Like, say we didn't post non-renewal when we were supposed to, and they automatically renewed. Okay, well, like, hey, that was our fault. Hey, this is how we're going to handle this. We're going to ask them to leave, or we'll cover cash for keys, whatever it may be. Like, we try to find a solution. And then sometimes it will be that the owner client messes up, and then we have to figure out how to like make it work. Where, say, they don't get back to us with a work order approval within a certain amount of time. It's like, then at that point, it's like, you're human too. You have other things going on. We're human too as well. And so like, we've come a long ways in customer service, in like putting our owner clients first, putting our tenants first, like leading with care. I think we've grown a ton in making sure that things are systematized. We have processes for everything. That was just a long rant, but there's a lot there of like, obviously not the biggest PM company is going to be the best. If it's all about the bottom line and you only care about the dollar sign, at the end of the day, there's going to be cheaper. There's going to be, other property management companies that, are going to do the bare minimum. But if you're wanting to, have high customer service, you're wanting to have a person that you could reach out to and check in on your property, get to know what's going on, then a smaller company, a more local company, a specialized company, someone that actually like knows exactly what's going on, like that's also feasible and possible as well. So
I think that's great advice. Like finding a company that aligns with your values. There's a lot of options out there. And I think that's might not be what people's first intuition would be to think about when trying to find a property manager. They might just be looking, at price first and foremost, and not thinking about some of these other things like the importance of customer service. And I mean, from my perspective, I would say that probably a larger company is not going to be the best option most of the time, because you just got to think, if a company has hundreds or thousands of doors, like you as the owner are just going to be such a small, tiny piece of the puzzle. Like, yes, as you scale, you do get better at certain things, but your business probably is less personal. Whereas if you have a smaller local company, the odds that property manager knows what's going on with your property, knows the market really well, is probably
100%. Yeah. I think also knowing, I would also ask a lot of detailed questions. So most of the times when I get a call about a new owner wanting us to manage their properties, they'll ask the general questions of like, what do you all charge? And it's basically all the same, between 8 and 10% of the monthly rent. There's probably some variation on the leasing fee, probably not much. Are there vacant? Like, those are kind of the standard questions. But if I was talking to someone, if I was going to hire a property management company in a different state that I don't live in, I would like drill into like, talk to me about your collections process, and just stay quiet. What do they do? Like, I want to know, what day are they posting notice? What day are they sending it to evictions? What day are they offering cash for keys? What day, what emails are going out? When are they going out? Who are they going out to? Like, those are the more pertinent questions, because anyone could say, I manage properties and I charge 8%. But when someone doesn't pay rent, what are they going to do? If someone doesn't know how to answer that question, they're not going to be a good property manager. And then another question is like, talk to me about your renewal process. And then just say, okay, well, like, and then are they like, okay, well, that gap of 60 to 90 days out prior to the end of the lease, we send a renewal offer out there with a 3% increase, and we're going to see how they respond. If they don't respond, then we reach out to them on the 75th day. Like, if someone knows what they're doing, they're going to be able to drill into the details on it and actually give you an answer. But without kind of knowing what is expected, it's going to be tough to figure out, because again, at the end of the day, property management is kind of across the board. There's some really great property management companies, and then there's some really crappy property management companies out there. And being able to decipher between the two, for me, the only way that I know how to do that is to actually like drill into the details. You just won't be able to decipher between the two without that.
Great advice. And that kind of leads right into the next question. What advice would you give to people when selecting a property management company? I think you gave a couple really good examples of trying to find a company that aligns with their values, asking a little bit more specific questions and just being quiet to see what they say. Is there anything else that you would recommend for people who are looking for a good property management company?
Ideally, so again, I'm putting myself in someone else's shoes. If I was looking for a PM company in Iowa, what would I do? I'd probably try to find a trusted investor, someone that I know does a lot of business or does some business there, and then ask them, hey, who would you recommend, or who manages your properties, or who would you recommend? Because again, you want to filter out the bad PM companies from the good ones. And the reason why you want to do that, just to kind of hit this point home, you could have the best property, you could have the best asset, but without good property management, your asset will quickly become a liability. You will not make money on that property. You will lose money on that property. It's that simple. Property management is crucial to the success of that asset, especially the long-term health of it. So yeah, you don't want to be testing out property management companies. Like, oh, I'm hoping that things work out with like 6 months of not receiving rent and then not starting eviction and then having to deal with eviction for another 6 to 12 months. Like you're talking 18 months of not receiving a dime. And then the tenants are also messing up the property. Like things could go south real fast. And so you want to make sure that you're asking for references, like definitely start there. Read reviews. I think there's read reviews from owner clients, but also read reviews from tenants. You want to see like how are they treating the tenants? If a PM company is treating a tenant with care and respect, they're more likely to renew, they're more likely to stay within the network, which then reduces the turnover, which then reduces your expenses, which increases your cash on cash ROI. Like all of that is interwoven into the day-to-day side. So yeah, references, reviews, and then the last one is just an interview, a very kind of drill into them about like specifically how do you all handle, and the main ones are going to be collections, renewals, maintenance work orders, turnover, and marketing the property. If you could figure out those 5 processes and how they handle the day-to-day side on those 5 processes, you're going to get a really good idea on how they operate their PM side and whether or not they're going to be successful at it.
I just want to reiterate what you said about the importance of the property manager for your investment. This is something I think newer investors don't totally comprehend sometimes. I think even, thinking back to when I was first starting, I probably fell into the same boat where sometimes you're thinking about all these things like, the market dynamics, you're looking at your pro forma and your spreadsheets and your numbers, and you're thinking about all these aspects of your investment. But I want to agree with you so hard that I think the property manager is probably the number one most important key piece to whether your investment's going to perform or not. I would go as aggressive to say that if you find a good property manager that you like, I would invest there where that property manager can manage your properties. Like, who cares what, the market and the rent looks like if you don't have a good property manager? It doesn't matter. None of it matters if you can't have it managed effectively. Like, if I had a good person that I wanted to manage I would literally invest there. That's how strongly that's how important I think it is now.
100%. Yeah, because again, the asset on paper is just theoretical, and then once you get it in real life, like handling the rent and making sure expenses stay limited, making sure that they're not over repairing and over replacing things, like that is where the rubber meets the road. And without someone actually knowing what they're doing and doing it really well, it's just not going to perform as well as it can. And at the end of the day, you were in this business to make money, not to lose it. And they could quickly lose money if someone is not doing what they're supposed to be doing.
What can owners do to have a good relationship with their property manager? Once they found a good one, what can they do to help
Send them a lot
cultivate?
of money. Send them a lot.
Perfect. We'll add Danny's Venmo here at the bottom.
That's it. That's it. Yeah, just like random deposits of
Yeah.
money. No, there's different types of owners. What I would say is there's some owners that want to question and micromanage every single aspect of it, and it becomes very difficult when we think that they're, again, say the heat situation goes out. We recommend that we replace the heat right away. And that owner comes back and says, no, I want to get a second guy out there. Okay, well, we sent the second guy out there. No, the same second guy said the same thing as the first guy. Hey, it needs a complete replacement. He says, send a third guy out there. At this point, it's like, dude, trust us. We know what we're doing. It needs to be replaced. Our two contractors that are vetted and trusted and licensed, they're saying the same thing. It needs to be replaced. Like, not being a micromanager and not thinking that we are wanting to do like we're wanting to nickel dime or we're wanting to screw you over. Like, I think it was Albert Einstein that said you could see the world in two different ways. You could see the world as it's filled with friends, or you could see it as filled with foes or enemies. And like, being able to see the property manager as your friend, someone who's aligned with you. Like I tell my clients, at the end of the day, I want the tenant in there and I want them paying for as long as possible, because that's how we generate revenue. Our desires are aligned, because we have this company, this business, to generate revenue and to provide a service. And if we are dealing with tenants that are not paying and not, we don't have a vacancy fee. So for that exact reason, we want to make sure that our interests are aligned. If we don't have someone paying, then we're not generating revenue. We're spending a lot of time, a lot of energy. My team is focused on those properties and it's not providing any revenue for us. Making sure that, that people are not, that you're trusting the PM side. And I think also, like, too often we only hear from owner clients when things go wrong, not ever when things go right. At the end of the month, when we send our owner draws, like, it's very rare that we're like, then we get an email, hey, thank you so much, like, it was great this month, tenant paid on time, and you sent the owner draw. And like, I get there's a certain expectation. That's what we're supposed to do. At the end of the day, like, there's a lot of PM companies that don't do that. And so I'm not saying that it's a necessity to do, but I think that being positive in this industry that's typically very negative can go a long ways in helping your PM company or your PM team be excited to work with you and to want to follow up with your tenants when they're a few days late, and making sure that maintenance work orders get done promptly. Like, those little interactions, you want to, again, we're your friends, we're aligned, we're on the same team. If that is the case, then you should be excited when things work out. And speaking up on that in the positive way is only going to be beneficial.
What are some common misconceptions that you've noticed people have about property management?
Oh,
You guys don't really have too much work to do, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. We just sit on our
What do you
hands all day
even do
long.
over there?
Misconceptions. I feel like, I think some people think that property managers have it easy. Like, we just collect the rent and we send it out and we take $100 of it. It's like, there's so many different moving pieces that go into it. So like, the accounting part, like making sure that your numbers in your owner portal or your reporting, that those are accurate, making sure that 1099s go out on time every year, making sure that the unit stays rented, that obviously that the screening is done properly, that we're vetting them, that we're calling their previous landlords, that we're reaching out to their place of employment, that we're verifying that the pay stubs that they sent are real and legitimate, that they're sending in the rent on time, and that it's not with a fake, credit card, or, dealing with fraud or whatever. Like, there's just so much that goes into it. And so, I don't know if people realize that. And I think that would probably be one side of it. And then the other side of it is, like, maybe a misconception is that property management is, I feel like, maybe if an owner client maybe thinks that we're all the same. That's probably a big misconception. Like, it's a commodity. At the end of the day, they're just like with any service-based industry, there's going to be certain things that are equal or near equal across the board. But there's such a variance in, making sure that your PM company is experienced, that they have specialized market knowledge on the specific neighborhoods and the streets, making sure that they're, like, obviously, like, are customer centric, and they know, like, hey, how do you handle customer service? Those are just, there's big differences between companies despite being very similar in price.
That is so great to know. I know that there is never a dull moment in property management. And I am just wondering if you happen to have any recent funny or interesting stories
Hmm.
from, you know, your day-to-day journey as a property manager? I remember back in the day, there was some interesting stories with raccoon infestations
Mm.
and just all sorts of stuff that we had
Commodes.
to deal with.
Yeah,
Yes.
we've seen naked people, we've seen
Yes.
yeah, it's been bad. Yeah, but so I don't do the day-to-day side of property management very often, anymore. Like, I'm just no, I don't talk again, like I mentioned, I don't deal with the tenants or the owner clients. But recently, I got a lawsuit. It was a letter from an attorney, so not quite a lawsuit, but, this is funny in the sense that if you would have asked me this 4 years ago, I probably would have been super stressed out about like, "Oh, man, I got another attorney letter. I got a letter from an attorney," like but nowadays it's like, oh, like, it's I was joking with my team, like, "I'm just gonna hire an attorney in-house," because at this point, like, I've gotten so many trust me, we follow all the rules and we do everything by the book, but we've just the past few years, it's really we've seen an uptick in potential lawsuits and, like, litigation, and people are just, I think, struggling, and so they're looking for ways to unfortunately get some money. But I also see it as a benefit, not as a benefit. I see it as a positive thing that we're at a place where they look at Freedom Ventures Property Management and they say, "Hey, that company is big enough to sue, and I could get money from them." In a way, it's like I'm glad to be in that position to have that, like, just that sense of like, man, I could take them, I could get something from them. And so, yeah, we got a letter from an attorney saying it was something about, oh, that's what it was. It was high water bill, and there was a leak at the property that we manage. We had someone out there within 48 hours. We repaired the leak, and we even credited them like an extra $300 on their rent for the high water usage. I think the total bill was like $500 or something like that for that month, and they're requesting $7,000. I don't even know why or how, but it's like I passed along to my attorney. And we're dealing with it. It's we gave him a response, but I just think that if you are getting into property management, or you are even if you own property, like, just know that kind of litigation and attorneys, that is a part of it. If you own enough properties, it's only a matter of time before you're going to have to deal with that. And so don't be scared of it. Like, be prepared and make sure that you are structured properly and that you have good contacts. But yeah, at the end of the day, like, you just can't avoid it. And so I've actually never like fully, I've never had to go to court or anything. Like, things have always been worked out in our favor. But at the end of the day, like, I just want to make sure that the audience knows that it is a part of the industry, unfortunately, especially nowadays.
But
Yeah.
hey, yeah, that means that you're big enough to have a target on your back. So,
Yeah.
what do you tell people, or what would you tell people that say they're interested in starting a property management company? Does anybody ever ask you about this, or
Yeah, property management is such an interesting industry. It's kind of a mix of like frustration because people don't do what they're supposed to do. Like tenants not pay or owners not sending the money that they owe us on like a large repair. You have anger because like things are always like there's always fires that come up, like, but then you also have the other side of it of like the excitement of dealing with 300 plus families and like being able to help them out and being able to provide a home where their families are being raised. And then you also get like the hopefulness of like, man, like things will work out, like things are going to be better on the back end. This family that literally has never had heat, we get in there, we start managing it, and we provide heat, like, and like that, we're having a direct impact in someone's life. Like, and so I don't take that lightly. And I don't think anyone that's getting into the industry should either. But it is a very challenging industry. It will make you better in the sense that it will force you to grow. So if you want to be stretched, you want to be challenged, you want to you want to like at times get that feeling of quitting and then not quit and persevere. You want to be tested, and again, you want to grow. Like, this is a great industry. And that's kind of more of the self-development side, self-improvement side. But if you're wanting the monetary side, there's a lot of benefits on that side too. And so you not only are you going to get that monthly stable recurring revenue of the PM fee, you're going to get a lot of ancillary fees. You're going to get the leasing fee. You're going to get the application fees. You're going to get the utility fees. Like there's a ton there. But then not only that, kind of a next step would be like when that owner wants to sell a property, who are they going to go to? Then we keep it in-house and we sell the properties. And then when that owner wants to expand their portfolio, who do they reach out to? They reach out to us because then we represent them. And so, and then when like, I remember late last year, someone reached out and said, someone passed along your number to me and I have 3 properties in Birmingham I'm wanting to sell. And like, I didn't even know this person, but because I'm in the industry, then they kind of associate me with doing business, and they essentially I was able to buy those 3 properties, and it ended up being very profitable for me. But I just, I think looking at it from like a holistic standpoint is a very amazing industry if you're willing to put in the work, if you're willing to persevere. If you're willing to get around people who know what they're doing, if you could hire people that are level 10 experience, at least 1 or 2 people that like know how to handle collections, know how to handle accounting, learn how to, if they know how to handle aspects of the industry that are key, if you could figure out good employees or good team members to be able to come and help you out, it just makes everything so much easier on the back end. So yeah, it's just be ready for a very exciting, very difficult uphill battle, but also one that's very rewarding.
Can't underscore the tough part of it, but
Yeah.
but it is amazing. You are literally like at the kind of nexus of almost every part of the real estate industry.
Mm.
You know the market so well. You are the connection point between, all the contractors, the owners, the tenant, probably a lot of other industry professionals. And
Hmm.
so probably your growth has been like 10x by doing this,
Oh yeah.
I would imagine.
100%. Again, and it's also a really cool industry because I live in Miami, but I operate a team in Birmingham. And also we could then take this model and open up a branch in Huntsville or in Iowa. I don't know why I keep referring to Iowa, but I just some reason or anywhere else, California, Texas, like it really can be a nationwide approach. But I think there's also certain difficulties with that. And the last piece is not so the other kind of other businesses that I mentioned, like the brokerage and buying and selling side. I think the other piece is the contractors. You had mentioned that. Like there's a lot of PM companies that keep all their maintenance in-house. Every time a water heater breaks, they send their plumber out there. And so every time a tenant moves out and there's a turnover, they send their crews out there. We don't do that. We just have third parties handle that for us. But there's huge opportunity there day in, day out to, again, not only be able to control the processes, make sure the quality is there, making sure that they're done promptly, but also the other side of it is making sure that you're making more money.
Yes.
So,
It's amazing. That's like just one of the many things that I love about real estate is it's kind of almost endless opportunities, mostly a blessing. Sometimes it can lead to shiny object syndrome, which
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
um,
Being able to say no to things, what's that Warren Buffett quote? It's like the ability to say no is the number one factor in being able to be wealthy.
it's so true. I've definitely found that in real estate because there's so many opportunities. It's so amazing, but you can only do so much.
Exactly.
Well, this has been an amazing conversation. Where can people learn more about you and Freedom Ventures Property Management?
Easiest spot would be our website, freedomventurespm.com, or you could reach out to me on Instagram. It's dannyg.realestate.
Awesome. Danny, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This was an amazing interview. I think that everyone will get so much value from listening to you, and maybe we'll have to have you again at some point if you're up
Yeah, I would
for
love
it.
that. Thank you, Maura. I appreciate you. You take care, okay? All
You too. Bye, Danny. Thanks
right, see
again.
ya. All right, you're welcome.
Let's take a quick minute to thank our show sponsor, Duratus Properties. We have a ton of free resources on our website, duratusacademy.com, for real estate investors, as well as our masterclass, First Steps to Investing in Real Estate. In this masterclass, you'll learn exactly how to start your real estate investing business step by step, from setting up your business, setting up your legal and financial systems, getting your right team in place, making sure that you have the right strategy, how to select your target market, all the things to get you started on the right foot and avoid all the pitfalls and mistakes that I made when I was first starting out in real estate. So make sure that you go check that out at duratusacademy.com. As always, when I read these books, I take lots of notes and make sure to capture all the key concepts and terms and put them into digital flashcards that you can download for free in the show notes section at duratusacademy.com. Just check out our website, go to the podcast section, and you can find detailed show notes with free downloads for every episode. This concludes today's episode. Thanks so much for listening. Let me know if you like the interview format, and we'll bring more guests on the podcast. And make sure that you come back next week because we are reviewing the iconic and controversial The Art of the Deal by Donald Trump. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast and leave us a rating and review. We are a new and growing podcast, so every rating, review, and share helps immensely. Also, make sure that you're following us on social media where you'll see a lot more behind the scenes content on a daily basis. See you every Tuesday and Thursday.